And welcome to the Week 7 waiver edition of the Fantasy Flex podcast. I am your host, Chris Raybon, joined as always by my dude, Sean Koerner. Sean, what's going on, man? How you feeling?
What's up? Well, it's Monday morning, so that means I'm sulking over my Sunday Night Football prop. This is 3 weeks in a row now. Another brutal loss. It's on me this time. Chase Claypool did not even come close to 63.5 receiving yards. It looked like he and Big Ben have never caught passes from each other last night. So yeah, that was bad. I'm going to bounce back tonight. I'm pretty sure of that. But how are you doing? How was your week 6?
I didn't feel good about week 6 once I started looking at what happened. I mean, it was a very low scoring week.
Yeah.
Some of the bets I made, I felt like could have gone either way. Like the Steelers blew a big lead. The Bears were in the game until late in the game, but overall, just a kind of one of those weird low scoring weeks. A lot of the running backs with injuries didn't do well, like Antonio Gibson. A lot of the guys who filled in did decently. So, not the best week, I think, but we got to keep grinding, man.
Yeah, we're due for a really good week to make up for these like mediocre weeks. So yeah, I'm with you, man. Let's just step it up here. Week 7 is our week.
All right, now let's get into waiver pickups for week 7. We have 6 teams on bye: the Bills, the Steelers, the Jags, the Chargers, the Cowboys, the Vikings. So there's some big name players out, especially at, quarterback, running back, receiver. So we'll kind of figure out who are the priorities to pick up, and just some streaming options as well. Sean, let's start at quarterback. Josh Allen's on bye, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott. So quite a few guys that people have to replace. I mean, I'm looking at the potential streamers, and it's not looking too promising. I mean, there are a lot of guys I feel like you could consider, but no one stands out. So tell me if any of these guys stand out to you. Daniel Jones against Carolina, Justin Fields against Tampa Bay, Teddy Bridgewater against Cleveland, Tua Tagovailoa against Atlanta, or Matt Ryan in that same game against Miami, or Derek Carr against Philadelphia.
I think the 3 that are standing out right now are Derek Carr. Right now, he's my QB8. Again, it's early in the week, but like you said, there's 6 teams on bye. So it doesn't take much to get in the top 10 right now. So Derek Carr's a top in my, initial models. But I think, we were talking Matt Ryan's a potentially good play. We need to monitor, the Miami cornerback situation, but Matt Ryan could sneak in my top 10 this week. And more of a long-term play, I think Tua makes sense. He faces the Falcons this week, but, his schedule looks really good. So he plays the Falcons this week. Next week, he plays the Bills, so we know to bench him. But then he has the Texans after that. So he'd make a pretty solid, 3-week rental if you're hurting at quarterback. So he's more of a long-term play right here, but certainly short-term, I think Derek Carr and Matt Ryan for me.
Yeah, Carr, Ryan, and Tua are kind of hovering right in my top 12 in my early projections. I don't feel great about that. I've noticed that Derek Carr actually tends to be really good against like man coverage heavy teams, and the Broncos are such, because, we don't think of Carr as like a downfield thrower, but that's the same thing defenses are thinking. And then he just seems to be attacking these one-on-one coverages, kind of like last year with Nelson Aguilar. And he's putting up these massive numbers against these kind of teams like Baltimore, Denver, he did it against. So, but Philly's such a zone heavy team that I could see that being somewhat of a trap. So I'm trying to like find a better option. Like hopefully we get those corners out for Miami again. Then I think Matt Ryan with Gage back, with Calvin Ridley back, with Kyle Pitts breaking out, I think he would probably be the guy. Ryan Tannehill against KC, if he's not rostered, I think will be an option if the Tennessee guys stay healthy through this Bills game, and his stock will probably be down. So I could see him, using him as well. But what about Daniel Jones? I just want to talk about him because I feel like it was a couple of weeks ago we were like, all right, Daniel Jones probably has to be rostered everywhere for the rest of the year. Then he gets concussed. Then he comes back and just plays horribly. Now the Rams D is going to be tough for any team. I mean, they did underperform a little bit, but Raheem Morris is such a good coordinator, and they have so much. They still have high-end talent that I think they'll get better throughout the year. So I'm not going to hold that against him. He's still in early projections my QB 13. Any thoughts on him? I'm assuming we're off Darnold. Like it's over for Darnold. Yeah. So what do we think of Daniel Jones here? Because he still has that rushing upside.
Yeah, I'm still interested in Daniel Jones. We need to see what's up with Kadarius Toney, Kenny Galladay, and to a lesser extent, Darius Slayton. But when Kadarius Toney went out of the game, that was a huge loss. And we'll talk about Toney later. But Toney had 3 catches for 36 yards on the first 4 plays.
Yep.
So once he went down, it really, tied Daniel Jones down, and he played like crap the rest of the way. But I'll be interested in him once he gets all of his pass catchers back. So he's a guy that we'll reevaluate later in the week. But the one guy that I wanted to get your opinion on is Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Because we finally saw his rushing upside. Like it's always been there, and it finally broke out. And now he gets the Buccaneers, which should be a good passing matchup. But can we trust him? He's only gone over 200 yards once now, and that was only 209 yards against the Lions. It seems like a good spot for Justin Fields, but right now he's still outside my top 20. Where do you think you're going to be ranking him this week?
I could see him borderline QB1. I would say bold prediction. This will be Justin Fields' best game of the season. You know why? What have the Bears been doing on early downs? Running like 2/3 of the time. What does no one do against Tampa Bay? Run the football. So it's like, okay, what's going to probably happen is they'll still use the heavy personnel and they'll max protect, but you're facing a Tampa defense. Richard Sherman's out now. That they're going to give up numbers to quarterbacks. They have given up the 6th most fantasy points per game to the position. And this is also probably the best offense the Bears are going to face. So, because Aaron Rodgers has been struggling under pressure. So that even that Green Bay game was somewhat of a slog. I think Adams only had 4 catches in that game. So I think this is a ripe spot where this is where we'll know like what Justin Fields will be in fantasy. Like if he goes off here, I think we can trust him in certain matchups. If he doesn't, then it's pretty much it's over for him.
Yeah, it's over. Well, for this year anyway. But yeah, the Buccaneers, I mean, even Levante David could end up being a game time decision. If he's out, that's going to help. So I agree. This is a matchup where if Justin Fields cannot crush, then we just can't trust him going forward. But I agree. And right now, like I said, he's my QB 23. But the more I look into this matchup, the more I do think he's going to have that QB1 upside. And we already mentioned, 6 teams are on a bye, so it won't take much to be QB1 potential this week. So I expect his rank to rise as the week unfolds.
Yeah, and I would guess they use him as like an extension of the running game, so they don't have, because they don't want to hand off to their 3rd string rookie. Oh, I mean, maybe Damian Williams will be back. We'll see, but Herbert looked good out there. All right, so final decision though. You have to pick one quarterback to add this week out of all the guys we talked about. Who's it going to be?
I'm still thinking Derek Carr. I think he does provide that high floor. If you're streaming a quarterback this week, you just need X amount of points, really. So I think Derek Carr's the guy. And he's been a little bit off the past couple of games, but he bounced back against Denver. It was interesting to see how he would fare with John Gruden out. I think it's not going to be an issue going forward necessarily. So I think gotta just lean on Carr this week for the safety.
Yeah, I'll go Carr as well. But Fields is he's intriguing. All right, let's go to running back. We have Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, James Robinson, and Austin Eckler. Just a couple of no-name fantasy guys on buys this week. So, and that's in addition to the fact that Kareem Hunt owners and potentially Nick Chubb owners might have to find a replacement. So just a lot going on, a lot of carnage and whatnot at running back this week. Going to be tough. Let's start with Cleveland. Kareem Hunt's definitely going to miss the game. Nick Chubb, I don't know. It's not looking great. Maybe they rested him, or held him out because they wanted to play him in this Thursday game. But is Demetric Felton, the rookie, or Dearness Johnson worth a speculative add at this point? Or how are you treating this Cleveland situation?
Yeah, I think Dearness Johnson would probably be the lead back. And yeah, like you said, I thought Chubb might be out a couple games, and now they play on the short week and they're saying he's questionable. I have no idea what's going on there, but it would not surprise him if he ends up sitting out. And Dearness Johnson would be that guy I think that we could bank on like 15 plus touches. Felton's the pass catching back. I think that certainly worth a flyer as well. Maybe, when it comes to showdown slates, but I think Dearness Johnson would be that guy. So he'd be a speculative, lotto flyer earlier in the week. Stranger things have happened, and we should know that situation earlier in the week. So I think he's certainly a good add this week. Definitely a sneaky play, but that's the situation I've been monitoring heavily, because if Chubb does play with Kareem Hunt now, I mean, he could be a top 3 back. So a lot to unpack the next couple of days for that situation.
Yeah, because Felton, he and Dearness Johnson both played 12 offensive snaps last week, but Felton actually didn't play out of the backfield. He was used as a wide receiver, which was odd. I mean, not that odd. I guess, Kareem Hunt was active, so he didn't get hurt until late in the game. But, I did notice that. I think Felton would be that backup running back to Johnson if they were both out. So, but yeah, he's not guaranteed any workload, but I could see them eventually using him in like a Cordero Patterson type role. If he gets more acclimated.
Or sort of I guess sort of the Kareem Hunt role in this offense, whereas Dearness Johnson is nowhere near a Nick Chubb caliber. Yeah, Nick Chubb.
Oh man, that's gonna be our nickname for Dearness Johnson. Nick Chump.
Dearness Johnson is definitely Nick Chump. But he'd be the only back that could get like 15 plus carries. Maybe Andy Janovich would be like the goal line back. I don't know. It's a disaster.
I think it's Johnny.
I was gonna say he's hurt too. They would have to call somebody up. But yeah, right now Dearness Johnson is Nick Chump.
All right. Yeah, so definitely worth the speculative ad. Speaking of speculative ads, Alex Collins took over in the third quarter and second half against Pittsburgh on Sunday Night Football. But in the process, he hurt his glute and I think something else too. I think he's got a couple of injuries there. So he just kind of ran himself ragged. Now Seattle looks like they're getting Rashod Penny back this week, the earliest they can possibly get him back. So that indicates he's probably healthy after the 3-game stint on IR. DJ Dallas also had 9 touches for 50 yards. They've been using him as a pass catching back. So we know Seattle's going to have to run. Like they're going to have to run even against a good running team in Pittsburgh. When they got down and back was against the wall coming out of halftime, they went right to the run game to try to open it up for Geno. But just like Pittsburgh, it's really tough to run on New Orleans. So if it's Collins, do you trust Collins, or are you adding Penny if we get word that like Collins is probably going to miss, or is this just a complete waste of time?
It's borderline waste of time. But if Collins is out, certainly Rashod Penny is worth a flyer. But like you said, they face the Saints, and here on the Fantasy Flex, we don't like playing running backs against the Saints.
Yep.
But there's so many good backs on a bye, you might not have a choice. So right now I have Alex Collins like RB 28, 30, that kind of range. So he's not like in a smash spot, but with Penny back in the fold, this could be sort of a running back by committee. I'm less interested now that, they're being led by Geno Smith. If Russell Wilson were healthy and playing, we'd want to take a flyer here, but just right now I'm sort of avoiding the Seahawks offense in general. So in deeper leagues, sure, take a flyer on Rashod Penny, but I just wouldn't expect much over these next couple weeks.
Yeah, Saints just 275 rushing yards on 97 carries to opposing backfields. That's under 3 yards a pop. But the silver lining, they've allowed multiple touchdown games in back-to-back games, one to Saquon Barkley and one to Antonio Gibson. So that's kind of the upside why I would at least monitor the situation. I think Collins is probably playable as a low-end RB2 if he goes. Carroll really likes him a lot more than Rashod Penny. Penny is probably even more. It's probably a banged up Alex Collins probably has a higher floor and ceiling than like a healthy Penny with Collins out, because Pete Carroll just doesn't like him and will play Travis Homer and DJ Dallas.
Yeah. So next week though, the Seahawks play the Jaguars at home. So that's certainly a spot where we'll be interested in the Seattle backfield. But this week against the Saints, this is probably an avoid.
Yeah. Okay. Baltimore. I mean, Latavius Murray came out of the gate hot, got a touchdown, but then Le'Veon Bell got a touchdown. Devontae Freeman got a touchdown. They play a much tougher run defense against Cincinnati. Murray's probably not available. I still think he's the guy to own in that backfield, but are you reading anything into this? Devontae Freeman with 9 touches for 53 and a touchdown, Le'Veon Bell, or is it just kind of like they're going to deactivate one of these guys every week and you want no parts of it aside from Murray?
Yeah, I probably don't want to invest in anybody outside of Murray, and even Murray himself is going to be frustrating because, I mean, this is a 3-way committee, it seems, and they got to compete with Lamar Jackson. I think they all benefited from the positive game script. I mean, the Chargers really didn't have a chance this game, and we ended up seeing a Tyler Huntley fourth quarter. So at any time we have those situations, all these running backs are going to feast. So going forward, Murray's the only guy I think you can trust. And like you said, I think next week it wouldn't surprise me if they have Tyson Williams in and one of these veterans out. It's a nightmare. But I think Latavius Murray still could be an RB3 flex, especially with these heavy bye weeks coming up. So he's the only guy out of these three I'm interested in.
Oh yeah, if you have Murray, you're probably starting him as RB2 next week because there's just so many guys on bye. Like if you need him, you're probably starting him. A couple of other guys I wanted to talk about, and it's pretty disgusting, but they are getting some usage, so we should talk about them. Maybe they're available. Mark Ingram, 18 touches per game over the last 2 games. They're a 17-point underdog against Arizona, but I mean, 18 touches a game is 18 touches a game. Yeah. What are your thoughts on him? And if it's between him and a guy like Michael Carter, only a 7-point underdog against the Patriots. Carter, 13.5 touches per game and a touchdown in each of his last 2 games. You just have to kind of hold your nose and add these guys, or any thoughts on them?
I think out of these two, I would definitely choose Michael Carter. Mark Ingram is, 17-point underdog or whatever the spread is now. That's not really a Mark Ingram game script. Laramie Tunsil's on IR. This is a situation to avoid, in my opinion. Whereas Michael Carter, I mean, he did look good in the London game. He is now outpacing all other backs and routes run. And I think when it comes to a team like the Jets, we do want the pass catching back, and that's certainly Michael Carter's skill set. So I think after the bye, we could see Michael Carter's role expand. Heading into this week, he's my RB27. He's on that RB2, RB3 fringe. We've said it all along. Like, it would not surprise us if Carter's role only grows as the season goes on. So, well, I don't think he's like in a smash spot this week. I think Carter has the most upside of these kind of like fringy running backs. So it's going to be Carter for me this week.
I have Carter a couple spots higher than Ingram in my initial projections. I think Ingram is still worth an add. Maybe you need him as a flex or something, because Arizona's allowing 5.1 yards per carry to backs. So well, it's not a Mark Ingram game script. It's a Mark Ingram game plan. Like, you're going to come into the game hoping to get Mark Ingram another 20 touches. So I think at least for this week, I would consider him. But yeah, the floor is obviously super low for these guys. But yeah, so any of the guys we talked about, I'll take out Murray because I'm sure he's already rostered. But who's kind of that like number one priority? It's pretty dire, but.
Yeah, I think, short term, it might be Dearness Johnson. I mean, he has massive upside if Nick Chubb is ruled out. So he would be the best home run swing for this week. But long term, I still think it's Michael Carter. Again, like last week or 2 weeks ago, they had the bye last week. He had a 43% routes run rate. I think his role's only going to grow. He's a talented rookie back. So I think long term, it's probably Carter for me out of these backs.
Okay, yeah. So for me, it's probably, if we're looking for under 50% rostered guys, I'd probably go with a guy like Mark Ingram. He's at 32% in Yahoo leagues. But I agree. I think long term, Carter's definitely higher. And I think you go ahead and add Dearness just in case. And one more guy I actually wanted to mention, Marlon Mack could get traded at any moment. It's so bad with these bye weeks and not really any great waiver ads. Is he someone that maybe you pick up just in case he gets traded this week, or would he still be like too low? Is it like too much of a long shot, I guess?
It's worth a flyer. Like, what I'm trying to think of a team where if he gets traded, we would be like, oh wow, he's like a low end RB2 now. Not the 49ers, but I'm trying to think. You can step in if you know.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm like, I'm really asking you. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, like I'm in agreement. Like you could do worse than I love taking flyers like that. But I just can't envision a scenario where he's traded to a team and he's all of a sudden an RB2. So that's why I still think, Michael Carter would be the flyer. I need to see his rostership percentage, but Ramondre Stevenson.
Yes, I was about to
maybe be a better flyer because I think he had another fumble. He missed a really bad pass block that led to Mac Jones getting sacked. So he might be back in Bill Belichick's doghouse, but he did look good as a pass catcher. With James White out, that role's been open. And Brandon Bolden's kind of been filling in for now, but they either want JJ Taylor or Ramondre Stevenson to step up. So I think Stevenson is an interesting flyer, where he's, Damian Harris injury away of being an RB2. So I think I'd rather have a guy like Stevenson or Carter as opposed to Marlon Mack, because as you saw, I'm kind of stumped in thinking of a scenario where Marlon Mack is traded to a team and he's an RB2. So unless you can think of a team that needs a running back where if he was traded to where he'd be an RB2, let me know.
Cleveland.
Cleveland. Oh yeah.
Seattle.
He had
Cleveland.
2 days to learn the playbook. Yeah.
The playbook is run. Just like anything to let Baker Mayfield not have to throw the ball. It's the Cleveland playbook. Oh, you know who I'm going to go with actually? Here's a guy we didn't mention, but he's right at 50%. Sony Michel. The Rams are playing Detroit this week, and they're 15.5-point favorites. This is a game where Henderson could get his, and Sony Michel could still get double-digit touches. So that's actually the guy that I'll throw out there. I think he's just as worth of an ad as a guy like Ingram or Carter if he's not rostered. Yeah,
and I mean, Sony Michel is the classic high upside backup running back I love, where if Henderson were to ever miss time, Michel would be at least an RB2, potentially RB1 value, depending on how much they get involved in the passing game. But yeah, if Sony Michel is available and you have a spot on your bench, certainly add him.
Yeah, he's 50% in Yahoo, so I'm guessing he's around. He's like, it's right on that brink where half of the listeners you guys will probably still have him, half of you won't. But I mean, that's what we're here for. We're talking about the guys that are kind of on those fringes. So because Elijah Mitchell, you mentioned San Francisco, he's rostered in about 2/3 of leagues, but tough matchup this week against Indianapolis. They're number 2 in run defense, DVOA coming into this week. So he's another guy that people may want to think about benching. So yeah, it's just a tough week at running back. But hopefully that helped out a little bit. Sony Michel, Ramondre Stevenson, Ingram, Carter, Dearness Johnson. All right, let's quickly talk about some wide receiver situations. Again, a lot of good players on bye. CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Jefferson, Thielen, Allen, your boy Mike Williams, Deontay, Claypool, Diggs, Marv Jones. I mean,
savage.
This is a lot. So first things first, Michael Thomas. I just wanted to talk about him. If he's back, do we trust him immediately as a starter in fantasy? Like, he's eligible to come out off this week. We don't know as we're recording this on Monday if he will, but if he is, are you immediately saying, okay, I got to start him this week? It's buys, it's crazy. We need
I mean, potentially we'll have to hear or read like what the practice reports are. Certainly, there's so many, you just listed off a ton of good receivers out this week where he could end up being, but we'll have to wait and see. I wouldn't rush to jam in my lineup. This Saints offense does not remind me of the Saints offenses. We had Michael Thomas as a wide receiver 1. So I don't think he's going to all of a sudden be a wide receiver 1 when he comes back. So let's wait and see with him. He could end up being on the wide receiver 3 sort of fringe, but I haven't heard enough for him to be confident one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd start him if he plays. He's going against the Seahawks. Like,
that's true. Yeah, the matchups would dictate that.
That's, you got to kind of take that and just if you live with it. If he burns you, you kind of live with it. If you have one of those studs on bye, but yeah, it's tough. All right. Sterling Shepard was only owned about half of Yahoo weeks. He got 10 catches, so make sure he's owned. Kadarius Toney, we'll see what's up with him. All right, so yeah, ton of Michael Thomas. I think you got to start him if he's there. Same thing if you've been stashing T.Y. Hilton. I think you started him this week. Paris Campbell looks like he's done for the season. Zach Pascal, I don't think got a target last week. T.Y. was being used down the field. He had 70 yards on 3 catches. I think his usage only goes up if he's in the lineup. What do you think about Rashod Bateman? 67% routes run in his first game. Now, obviously, that's with Sammy Watkins out.
Yeah, I think he's obviously worth a flyer. It'll be interesting to see like how he fits in this offense with Sammy Watkins in there, but he has the talent. Lamar Jackson has looked great this season, so I'd be more willing to invest in Rashod Bateman than I was earlier in the season. So if he's out there and you need that upside, he's certainly worth a flyer.
Donovan Peoples-Jones, 4 catches, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. Even without the Hail Mary, he did look good out there.
Yeah.
Now, it's a short week, so people are going to kind of remember that and maybe get tempted to start him if their roster is looking bare. But is this just another David Njoku situation? Is he going to get like two catches this week at 6 yards?
Yeah, probably. He's always had this type of upside, and it was kind of a perfect storm. Odell missed some time due to a shoulder injury. It was a trailing game script. So yeah, I would avoid him. And Jarvis Landry is going to be back very soon. So it's sort of a flash in the pan thing. Don't chase this production.
AJ Green, 5 catches, 79 yards and a touch. Christian Kirk, 575 and a touch. Do we trust any of these guys against Houston? The game script, I mean, it's probably not going to be great if they really win by 17, but if they win by 17, it's likely because Kyler Murray has a big day. So what do you think of these guys? AJ Green's under 50% owned in Yahoo.
Yeah, we always talk about this, but it's going to be sort of like musical chairs where one of these guys is going to be the odd man out every week. There's just too many mouths to feed. Now they have Zach Ertz. You called AJ Green last week. Like it's the receivers that line up on the right side against the Browns, right? So you called that one, but Rondale Moore is going to have a big game soon. So it's just what we need to expect when all these guys are healthy is, they're going to be inconsistent, but have some spiked weeks. So this week against Houston, we're not surprising if 2 or 3 of these guys goes off and one is the odd man out. So we're going to have to just kind of like hope and pray when we play these guys going forward.
Yeah, I've had a decent read on Cardinals receivers this year. I think what I've started to notice, and one thing, I mean, they do like to spread it around. Like that's been a goal, kind of like Cincinnati talked about earlier in the year when they were trying to spread it around. But one thing that, and the numbers back this up, AJ Green has been the guy against zone coverage, and you could see it watching Christian Kirk. Usually when they get man-to-man coverage, Kyler goes to Christian Kirk. That doesn't happen often now because it's usually on third downs. You don't want to blitz Kyler Murray on early downs and turn, like have defenders in man coverage turned around and you could just run. But sometimes on third, they end up, trying to get the ball out. So they'll bring a blitz and Christian Kirk will be manned up. But going against Houston, they play almost all covered at Tampa too. So that's a zone coverage. They're not going to blitz very much. They're not going to get much pressure. So this is kind of an AJ Green matchup where you don't expect, Kirk is going to be super efficient, I think, just because of the kind of targets he's getting, like single coverage from one of the best quarterbacks in the league throwing it. But I think this does kind of feel more like an AJ Green game. And then Rondale Moore, he's always the wild card. Like I think you could do worse than him, but like from a numbers perspective, I think AJ Green is the safest bet among the non-Hopkins guys this week. And I guess let's just talk about Zach Ertz. We'll get to tight end, but he's obviously going to command more targets per route than a guy like Darrell Daniels or even Dan Arnold probably. So did last year. So what are your thoughts on him and how he fits? And is he startable because of Kyler Murray, or are we kind of on a wait and see basis?
Sort of a wait and see. And this week, just to start the week, I'm projected for 2.5 receptions. It's kind of a placeholder. we need to see if he can learn the playbook in a week. We saw Dan Arnold really just step in right away for the Jaguars, but right now he's my tight end 14. So I don't know if we could trust him this week, but going forward, we like having pass catchers in this offense. I think really we're going to need one of these players to miss time for the targets kind of like funnel to these guys. So it's just going to be a crapshoot every week. And we didn't even talk about him, but DeAndre Hopkins only saw 4 targets this week. I mean, he bailed out his fantasy managers with the 2 touchdowns, but I mean, he's going to have to get his share going forward too. So I just think this is a really finicky situation where I think, all these guys are going to be somewhat inconsistent, but they're really tough to project right now, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, but you kind of have to, you probably just start them and Arizona could put up 50 points on Houston this week.
Yeah. Well, let's just put it this way. You know who this is good for? Kyler Murray. I mean, He has so many weapons right now. So yeah, this is all really, really good for Kyler Murray, but unfortunate, like I said, like 1 or 2 of these guys, if they were to miss time, then we could be really confident about these guys, but there's just too many mouths to feed in this offense.
Henry Ruggs, 3 catches, 97 and a touch against Denver. I don't feel great about him against Philly because, again, Ruggs is another one of these guys. He's benefited a lot from that, like single coverage when teams blitz and play a lot of man, like Denver does. I don't know if Philly, they play that quarters 4 deep coverage in zone. I don't know if that's the kind of like Ruggs blow up spot. So do you trust him this week against Philly?
it's always hard to trust Henry Ruggs because he does have that low floor, but this season he hasn't really had that low of a floor. Like even his duds, like week 1, 2 catches for 46 yards, and week 5, 3 catches for 51 yards aren't like that bad. So I think he's worth, if he's your wide receiver 3 or flex and you have a bunch of guys on bye this week, he's worth his upside. And even when he has been, failing you, he's still been getting some stats. So I think I've been down on Ruggs quite a bit, but I think going into this week, if you're an underdog, you need that upside. I think he could do worse.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, with on bye, Ruggs, Mooney's another guy. I think you play this week against Tampa. He's averaging 68 yards on over 4 catches over the last 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think you probably stick with him. He's got 5+ catches in 3 straight. The yardage 53, average, not crazy, but not terrible either. Robby Anderson.
If 5 catches for 50 yards and no touchdown is your thing, then Amon-Ra St. Brown is your guy, because that exactly what you're getting every week. So in deeper PPR leagues, he has a very high floor but very low ceiling, it seems. So we kind of know who he is at this point.
Well, yeah, Jared Goff has a low ceiling.
Exactly.
St. Brown is a good player. Robby Anderson, though, this is the one that, I mean, it's one of those weeks where it would be great to start the guy that, we were high on Robby Anderson. We thought, there was a chance he could kind of at least approach what DJ Moore was doing, especially with his former buddy Sam Darnold back. And it just hasn't happened. He's got 29 targets over the last 3 weeks and just 10 catches. Can we start him as a wide receiver 3 flex against the Giants?
I think some people are going to have to, right? Because so many people are on bye. Right now, he's my wide receiver 30. So he's in that sit-start range. But like you said, he's seen the opportunity. I was watching a lot of that game, and he made some really horrendous drops. I think it could sort of be a mental thing with Robby, but I think, I like to back Robby more times than not. So I think I'll give him one more week. And it looks like Terrace Marshall could be out this week. I believe he's in the concussion protocol. So if he's out, that we're going to see more targets for Robby, but this could be the last week for him. And certainly against the Giants, a bunch of teams are on bye. I think I'm going to stick with him for one more week.
Yeah, he's my wide receiver 35 in early projections, but that's still in that wide receiver 3 territory. Okay. And then one more I wanted to talk about, Nico Collins. He had 6 targets. This could be a, throw heavy script. Is he worth kind of like taking a flyer on now? I don't know if he's startable, but is he at least worth a stash maybe, or you're kind of still lukewarm on him?
Yeah, I wouldn't really trust him this week. Danny Amendola might return this week. Chris Conley, will need to see what's up with him. But as long as Davis Mills is under center, the only guy I want to trust is Brandon Cooks. I don't know if Mills can support 2 pass catchers right now. So I think Collins is more of a long-term ad for once Tyrod Taylor returns. And I was high on Collins heading into the season. I think he's a talented rookie receiver. So later in the season, when, they're dealing with negative game scripts and Tyrod Taylor's under center, sure. Like, I think he has the potential at least to be on that wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 cusp.
All right. And then a tight end, Dalton Schultz, Dawson Knox, Jared Cook are on bye. I mean, the crazy thing is that's like worth mentioning in its first place. So I'll start, Dallas Goedert, he's kind of been up and down, but you're starting him this week against Vegas with Ertz out of the picture if he's off that COVID list, right?
Oh, absolutely. And, we were kind of making fun of people drafting him inside the top 8 heading into the season because they were banking on Zach Ertz to get traded. And finally that has happened. So now we can treat Goddard as, I think, definitely a top 10 going forward. But this week, certainly, he's going to be right on that top 5 cusp, just given all the guys that are out this week. So, yeah, I think Goddard's in a, safe play going forward.
And then in terms of like number 1 waiver priority, Goddard, I mean, he could be available, but more likely than not, he's not. But Ricky Seals-Jones probably is. He's 29% owned, 6 targets, 4 catches, 58 yards a touch against the Chiefs. Now he plays Green Bay. They entered the week 22nd in DVOA against tight ends. So is he kind of your number 1 guy? If you have a bye.
Yep. We've been tooting his horn now for the past couple weeks, I feel. So his 4 catch, 58 yard and a touchdown game was not surprising. He's basically the Logan Thomas role right now. Like I think last week he surpassed 90% routes run rate. So yeah, as long as Logan Thomas is out, we're starting Ricky Seals-Jones. And even once Logan Thomas returns, I think he's going to eat into his workload. So I think I'm afraid this has lowered Logan Thomas's rest of season outlook, because I could see them being more of a 50-50 timeshare. So yeah, Ricky Seals-Jones in the meantime, definitely a must add. Right now, he's my tight end 10, if you could believe it. So definitely the top streamer play this week.
I think he's like my tight end like 6. Like
yeah,
I mean, it's bye weeks, you know.
No argument here. Yeah, that's.
No, he's 10. He's 10. Okay, sorry.
Oh, okay.
I thought I was thinking of, who was I thinking of? I don't know. But anyway, yeah, he loves Seals-Jones, and he's actually available twice as much as Ertz because people were starting Ertz last week. So
yeah,
make sure you take advantage of that. Don't just kind of somebody might just kind of sit tight with Ertz, and it might be a little extra chance of getting Seals-Jones, who I would absolutely start over Ertz. And then one more guy I wanted to mention was Hunter Henry. He's got a touchdown in 3 straight games going against the Jets. I mean, only 2 catches last week, but in a tough week, is he worth a start here against New York?
Oh yeah. He's right on that cusp of the top 10 tight ends. He's really stepped up the past few games. Jonnu Smith is sort of an afterthought. I guess they're treating him as the blocking tight end, and Hunter Henry is the pass catching tight end. So we care about that for fantasy. Last week, he finally crossed the 80% threshold in routes run. So yeah, I'm all in on Hunter Henry this week and going forward. And I mean, imagine if Jonnu Smith were to ever miss time. I mean, Hunter Henry could end up being a top 5 tight end. So yeah, I love Hunter Henry this week and going forward.
Yeah, and you might see Devin Asiasi run routes, and he gets targeted like 0% of the time.
Yeah.
Whereas like Jonathan Smith gets targeted like 30% of the time when he's on the field. It's just that he's not on the field enough. So that would actually be amazing. That's who I was thinking about. He's my tight end 7 right now, Henry. So
I thought you were saying Asiasi. I was like, what? Yeah,
yeah, my
Hunter Henry.
Like 77.
I cannot argue with him being in your top 7.
Yeah. So good week for Henry. That's gonna do it for the week number 7. Fantasy Flex Waivers Pod. We'll be back Wednesday to break down the DFS main slate. Until then, you can find Sean on Twitter at @_oddsmaker. You can find me on Twitter at Chris Raybon. You can find us at those same handles in the Action Network app. Check out actionnetwork.com for our fantasy football rankings and projections, and check out fantasylabs.com for our DFS content, models, and tools. We'll be back Wednesday with our main slate breakdown. Until then, let's get this money.